Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are in the Smite Minor League. My name's Tom Badinger, joined here by Anatoly Alexeyev, and we've got an exciting one coming up for you. It's Simplicity versus Outcold, and these two teams have some pretty star-studded rosters.
Oh, they definitely do. Specifically in that solo lane, you got Maniac on one side, Dimmy on the other. Both of these teams, I would say, need to find their footing in order to catch out Flashpoint that are currently 4-1.
Now, it's interesting to look at these matchups because, as you said, Dimmy and Maniac are definitely the focal points here. But Dimmy coming off of a not-so-strong performance, he kind of got beat up in that solo lane last time around.
I'm not sure if it was because it was a lack of familiarity with the King Arthur or if it was just not being prepared for Julio's Camazotz against Queso last week. But this week against Maniac, I'm not sure if there's going to be too many curveballs out of him. I think both of these solo laners are more of your traditional, just Bruiser-esque kind of style, playing the below and just maybe some even Guardians.
We'll see what's going to go on there. As far as solo is concerned, it's been really exciting. In the major leagues, we've been watching some crazy stuff. Final K brought out solo Circuit, even a solo Hell. There's been a lot of interesting things. Just last match, we saw the Batman come out. Camazotz doing his thing. Traditionally just brought up against King Arthur, but now kind of messing around. So very interesting stuff going on the short side.
It definitely feels like that's a Julio selection, not like a meta selection. But it does work against King Arthur if you're able to hit those abilities. I'm not sure if Dimmy or Maniac will bring it out today. Probably more traditional-esque style. Even last set, bringing out the Giannis jungle was worse, Turtle. But between Fails and Frostyak for these two teams, I'm not sure if we're going to see any mage shenanigans, unless Hobwa's open, maybe.
Yeah, Fails and Frostyak, definitely some of the more traditional jungler players in our book. Frostyak, most notably, bringing out some of the crazy Susanoo plays. Fails, on the other hand, known for some Naja and some Jungle Monkey as well. So Hun Bats could be a nice look after his jungle camp clear, has been amplified by the change to the 3.
Frostyak, he loves to be this aggressive, whether it's the Circuit, the Susanoo as well. He likes to play these assassins. And funny story about Outcold Gaming, they're currently 1-3, and their only win was in week number 1 up against Simplicity. So if history repeats itself, they need to be as aggressive as they were in week number 1, if not even more aggressive.
Pretty Prime, certainly not a bad name to have on your roster if you're looking to try and find some wins. You know, Frostyak has been a very interesting player throughout his career. I see a lot of inconsistency come out from Frostyak historically. Games where he'll go 12-0 and then games where he goes 0-12. But his most recent stint here in the minor leagues has been pretty impressive, more positive than negative.
It has been, and considering that he's on a different roster than what he's used to in Season 5, going from the SPL to the SML, I think that he's still making a good stride so far. I think it's up to the rest of his teammates as well, though, to kind of step it up a little bit, because when you look at the roster from top down, Dimmy, Frostyak, Pretty Prime, Emilito, Spudio, right? Like, these rosters easily could be in the SPL if they really, have the opportunity to perform and show themselves. But so far, there's something missing, right? There needs to be more just execution on the objectives, and this is where they're struggling.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at that because the mechanics aren't missing. Emilito, one of the most storied players in Smite history, choosing to stay in the minor league. Pretty Prime having some family stuff going on, so he's going to stay in the minor league as well. Family stuff always sounds negative. Positive. Pretty Prime starting his family, so congratulations to him. Hopefully a win can wind up in his column as well. Talking about Simplicity, though, what do you think is their key to victory here today?
I think a lot of it is in the duo lane. Genetics there alongside Streak Up. It's up to them to kind of run the early laning phase and see how they can transition it, and they've been making it happen thus far, sitting at 2-2 record-wise, and it's kind of enabled by the front line, right? Like Maniac and Fails making that space that Streak Up really needs, and their draft has been really consistent, right? Like Hachiman is just kind of his go-to. That could be a downfall if that's all he's been practicing, because it's very easy for the likes of Outcold Gaming to do their homework and then just kind of focus out Streak Up.
At the same time, what we haven't seen doesn't necessarily mean that it's not there to be seen. In fact, this is a strategy I really like. We celebrate, myself included, the fact that Panda Cat in the Pro League has switched over to mid lane and has played 8 different gods in 10 games, right?
Yeah.
That's all well and good. But there is something to be said about, well, I'm just going to spam this one character until you force me to change, and then I'll show you my other trap card. Like keeping your information close to your chest is important.
The Moswell effect, right? Playing the Outwash, the Zeus in Season 5, getting it all banned away. Then he brings out the Agni, the Vulcan as well. Like his god pool is immense. So Death Panther kind of doing the same thing for his side on the European side. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to more than just Death Panther. I think that Outcold, they need to really focus out Fails to get the victory today.
I agree there. I think Fails is definitely one of the spots that you can sort of look at here in the jungle. And of course, right now, some changes to the jungle invade situation, but we'll see how that affects the game at large. Picks and bans right here, right now. OCG on the left-hand side. Simplicity will be responding. First ban on the clock at the moment will be a Xbalanque.
No surprise to see the Xbalanque ban. It's been first picked for the most part between Arthur's and Freya's being stripped away.
Sure.
This leaves the likes of Naja and Bacchus's being available, and that could be something OCG lean on.
That's a really big deal as well. I want to make sure that teams don't fall into the trap of going, well, Naja got to change. No need to be afraid of him. A change to the way Naja strips protections at level 1 and some base damage on the ultimate. Still absolutely the same assassin that he was once upon a time. Still absolutely a strong tank, just maybe level 1 has been adjusted a little bit. So Naja, still a dangerous character to pick, and that's why Outcold Gaming going to opt for the ban. Simplicity here trying to decide if they want to allow King Arthur to go through, and they will in lieu of a Fenrir man.
And when you're dealing with Arthur, you're going to be looking for probably the Artio if you're Simplicity. Maybe the Camazotz, maybe Simplicity looked at that matchup of last week of how Demi struggled against Julio, and that could be something that Maniac brings out today. But it's definitely not gone unnoticed, that's for sure.
Terra is going to be selected here. Simplicity could be choosing that, but that would be almost a complete relinquish of the lane. We've seen that once or twice. Maniac does have the Terra in his arsenal. And the Hun Bats, and I love this pick from Simplicity. As we both noted, Fails is definitely somebody that Outcold Gaming could look at to sort of try to exploit, and Hun Bat's definitely one of the characters that I think Fails is more strong at.
And if there is a Terra solo lane, it's very easy for this Hun Bat's jungle to mix in the magical damage with the physical damage to look for those early solo lane kills. And I like the fact that you're chuckling with Merlin being locked in.
Look at that,
here.
King Arthur and Merlin.
The Lords finally united.
It's there. Real talk though, King Arthur has been very powerful. We've known it for a while. As far as Merlin is concerned, this is about his first week in competitive play, so we got a chance to see him a little bit yesterday on the console side. Now in the minor league, we're going to take a look at him. A stance switcher, but a little different flavor than what we see out of King Arthur. I think a little bit more akin to what you see out of Uller, so to speak. So, as he's selected here for Simplicity.
It's going to be difficult to really survive against some of the ganks, so needing to be in super safe positions is Outcold Gaming's pretty prime. If he gets out of position, that flicker is a 24-second cooldown at rank 1. Yeah. It shares that cooldown between all 3 stances, unlike his other abilities. So, yes, Merlin is great offensively, having so much space control. You add a Gem of Isolation to the mix. It's really difficult to do anything, but if you blink on him, he's not really going to get out without like a Khepri or a Geb to assist.
Yeah, so a couple of tips there for dealing with Merlin. First half of the draft in the books, and Outcold Gaming have confirmed King Arthur, Merlin, and Hachiman, which will likely be the solo lane, middle lane, and the carry. Simplicity, on the other hand, Terra, Hun Bats, and Uller, a little bit more ambiguity there. Bans out as well. Simplicity looking at the Guardian in the jungle position. No Daji and no Kumba. And then Outcold Gaming looking at, well, the mages. Poseidon and Zhonghui.
Zhonghui very annoying to deal with when you're trying to burst people down and they have that much protection, and they're going to counteract you with throwing the ghost. I don't necessarily disagree with those bans out of Outcold Gaming. Also, the cripple is going to be super annoying for Arthur to deal with.
Khepri selected here. You were talking about how Merlin might need some help from a Khepri. Well, Simplicity are able to take that away. Merlin might not have that. That said, we'll see if that's actually the case here, as Outcold Gaming selected jungler Susano and their support player thinking about the choice here. And it will be a Fafnir.
This is pure aggression from Outcold Gaming. They don't have many defensive peel options. If they're not going to kill anybody in the first 5 to 10 seconds, they're probably going to be the ones killed instead.
Uller could be a mid lane or a carry. And with the Chernobog selection, one of the hunters will definitely find their way in that center position. Terra, of course, looks like the solo lane with Khepri as the support. Hunt Batsinator in the hands of Fails, one of his best characters. We'll see if he can crush the opposition. Game 1 on the way.
Game number 1, Outcold up against Simplicity, and it's Finch and Aggro on the call. The SML in EU has been very, very competitive, but Aggro, this is a scary draft to give away.
I didn't even think about that. It's Pretty Prime playing Merlin.
Isn't that scary?
I got chills, Finch. This is chills territory right now.
Well, it's a very physical heavy comp.
And it's
from
Dimmy
Simplicity.
playing King Arthur. I'm kind of fanboying a little bit.
I get it. If you want to
sweet.
see why these gods are considered very strong, it's hard to think of two players that could better show us.
Normally you would say that, but this team has really been struggling.
They have
so
been, yes.
I maybe they won't be able to put on a show with these characters because Outcold as a whole has had a real struggle with their team play and outright just winning games. And Simplicity, on the other hand, has had moments where they look very, very strong. So I really, despite a draft where you get to see Arthur and Merlin on the same team, I don't know that you can guarantee that this is going to be an Outcold victory.
I don't know that you can either, and you're exactly right to point out that Outcold have had some struggles. This team was supposed to have Emilito on it, but that never ended up happening. It was several weeks in a row they had to play with a sub. Eventually, they just moved on from that. Now they have this full roster here together with Half Devil and Spudio on this team as well. And they haven't been able to gel just yet. But I think if there's a composition that is gel-proof, that can succeed even when the gel's not there, it would be one that looks like this.
Exactly. I mean, Armada's kind of done it in North America, right? It's just a star-studded roster, and they've looked really dominant. And we kind of expected the same for Outcold in this game, or this season rather. But I mean, it hasn't come to fruition yet. But we're only 4 weeks in the books. Is week number 5, so still plenty of time for this team to start getting it together.
Yeah, there absolutely is. And I was hinting at this earlier, Ryan, that it's very physical heavy, this composition from Simplicity. Yes, they have Maniac on this Terra in the solo lane, so there's going to be a little bit more damage coming out from that than a normal Terra. She'll be ahead in experience in gold 2, but I don't think it's enough. King Arthur already builds physical defense so well.
He does, and he wants to build Glad Shield and Void Shield and be able to be in the middle of the team fights and be taking a lot of damage and dealing out a lot of damage simultaneously. But I do think that you at least have some gods that can build Brawler's Beatstick pretty effectively early on. I'd love to see for Fails to rush one of those and then spend some time in the solo lane to try and shut down that Glad Shield healing. Even Streak Up could pick up a Brawler's Beatstick if they really feel it necessary. Maniac could pick up a Pestilence, though. Wouldn't really help him in the defense department up against Dimmy, but I think that anti-heal is going to be pretty important to make sure that Dimmy doesn't get to just roam through these team fights completely free.
And they do have this rotational ability, right, with this Turnabog. So that's one more thing that we've seen work against Arthur's, is just kind of sitting on him over there in the solo lane and never letting him get to that point where they do have so much sustain, they can get way out in front and just fight up against 3 or 4 people. So it's a possibility from Simplicity if they want that. But is that what you want them to see? Do you think they should show potential over there, or should they maybe come over here to the dual lane and maybe look towards Half Devil and Spudio?
I think that going over to solo, if you can get Dimmy behind, you can put yourself in a really easy position to win, but I think that's a harder proposition than just going over to the duo lane.
This purple buff certainly being contested, and the confirmation will come through from Streak Up as he drops down the hail of arrows. Good abduct from Genetics to make sure the buff is defended. This is another thing we've seen a lot of from these duo lanes is this aggression, trying to steal this purple buff away. We saw a proxy, I think, yesterday where they went all the way up to the Phoenix and farmed right then. It's still so much up in the air across the map about what the most effective use of this early game time is.
And remember, this is on the patch where you have the spirit minion or the ghost minion or whatever we're calling it to make sure that the duo lane hits level 2 a little bit earlier on, and I think that's why we saw this duo lane, even with something really aggressive like Kepri Uller, they don't even go for the early purple buff invade because it's so you're risking a good amount when you could just sit in lane and gain that guaranteed experience. And it's not only the ghost minion; it's the fact that invades are now worth less to the team that is stealing those buffs away from their opposition. Still always worth doing, because it's like here's the way that I equate it. Finch, I've been giving you $10 every week just because I like you. You know?
Thanks, man.
I'm now going to give you $7 a week because
it's not worth it anymore. Me getting $7 from
you don't want it?
I don't know.
So I can have my $7.
Wait, no, sorry. I do. Yes, I still want the. I thought about it, and I do want the $7 still. Yes.
Well, but it's worth less than the $10.
Right, but it's worth more than 0, and also you don't have $7 now.
Right,
and
so
I
a
have
$14 swing
in my favor.
Correct.
Yeah, I still want that.
Yeah, invade.
Go do it still.
That's where you want to be, for sure. It's worth less. Yes, it is still absolutely worth your time.
Especially when there's oftentimes when junglers have farmed the map very well, and it's the only thing left up to go do anyway. So yeah, certainly worth looking at. I think that fails in this game is going to be very important for me, because that's one other thing that King Arthur can struggle with, is a lot of control. If these Fear No Evils are used very well and he can't spin and move around through the fight and get off a bunch of healing, then you can often get that last bit in that you need to take him down. So how well these Fear No Evils are being used, I think, is one more thread to follow.
Absolutely, and the fact that Frostiak goes for Blink at level 1 instead of Purification Beads means
he's
that
vulnerable
Fails
too.
has a really good window, and now that he has his completed boots, Hunbat's playing passive, even level 5, you want to get those boots online because he won't 100 to 0 you with boots 2, even if you don't have Purification Beads. So I think that this is a good spot for Fails to start playing aggressive.
Hopefully we'll get a chance to see it soon, as Frostiak is the one who's, as you pointed out, is poised to be aggressive. He has the blink on this Susano, and getting to make it all the way to level 6, even level 7 really, or 8, without having to have any kind of fights is exactly what this Susano wants, I feel like. Once he gets to that level 8 level or so, then he's happy to start pushing on the gas. So Fails really should look for something here soon.
2 more mid-game oriented junglers, for sure, in Hunbats and Susano. Neither wants to really fight you pre-5. Susano, not because he's lacking the CC, but because he just kind of lacks the outright damage. Maniac needs some damage and help, because Dimmy's got plenty of it, but
Wow.
Terra's Blessing is the help that he needed.
That's not the only place we're seeing action near these right side mid Harpies. Fails had positioning if he wanted to come in and drop the Fear No Evil, but he thinks better of it. Prime spreads out from the rest of his team, making that Fear No Evil less desirable. They grab the mid Harpies, but Half Devil's not done just yet. He wants to jump in and follow Fails, but he could potentially get caught out. Genetics is also here. The root lands, and now Half Devil's going to need this Draconic Corruption as he gets pulled back in, but he holds the ultimate. Instead, it's the Typhoon that comes out. Now he gets Fear No Evil, then he falls. Fails finds first blood.
Now Fails pulled back into the damage
don't
coming from
understand.
Pretty Prime. Prime has to get a good transform, but a better
Wow.
revive by Genetics. Save Fails just in time. Yeah, I got nothing for you there, Finch. Half Devil's waiting because he knows if he uses his ultimate, then Fails is going to just drop Fear No Evil right on the other side, but if you just don't use it, then you never, it doesn't matter.
He'll just drop Fear No Evil on you.
You need to be able to react to the Fear No Evil cast either way, and Half Devil just didn't do it. He just should not have jumped into the enemy back camps in the first place. That's really where this all goes back to. And we've seen Half Devil play a lot of this Fafnir recently, and I think we saw him play it a decent amount last year on SK as well. And to be honest with you, Finch, I just don't know why he keeps going back to this character. I just haven't really liked the performances.
Yeah, I'm not so sure either. This did come later in the draft, and I thought maybe this was something to try and stop the double hunters from having it, but I think they already had
The Kepri.
the Kepri at this point anyway, so I'm right there with you. I'm not 100% sure why he has so much love for this pick. It's a popular pick. A lot of the pros I talk to are high on this Fafnir pick, especially when he's in that dragon form. A lot of people consider him one of the better Guardians in the game, so you're giving me a look. I gotta know.
I'm giving you a look because I'm not sure if this is the direction I want to take it. When you can hit everything on Fafnir, he feels really, really good.
He does feel good.
I just don't think that Half Devil hits enough hammers to make
see.
it look really good.
I see. Well, I mean, in that time, it wasn't even mechanically that Half Devil misplayed.
It was just decision making.
Right. It
Right.
was poor decision making for sure. He definitely didn't need to go in there, and he gifts one over to Simplicity at a time in the game we were just talking about how important it was that Fails finds a kill. Instead of making Fails work for it around this blink that Frostiak has, one gifted over to him is just not what you want to see.
That being said, Half Devil taking the early first blood isn't too big of a setback for him, and he still has the opportunity to make a lot of plays as the game continues. He's still right around the same level as Genetics. He's actually a little bit ahead in net worth despite that early death. That's courtesy of Fafnir passive, of course. He's still okay.
Half Devil pulled back in, is able to jump away, so Fails can't land the overhand smash, though he had Prime right there on the Merlin to follow up anyway. Merlin doing the Merlin things on the right-hand side with Maniac, who's taking quite a bit of damage, and I think he recognized he's got to get out of there. Still doesn't have that breastplate finished.
Dimmy's been playing very aggressively in this lane, but Maniac's been living, and that's truly all that matters.
Yes.
With Fails going for the early Jotun's Wrath, I think that him not going over to solo at all is the correct call. If he rushes Brawlers, I think he can go over there and potentially get a kill onto Dimmy, but even then it's a little bit risky. I've got no problem with this different strategy of let's just wait for me to get as many Fear No Evils off as possible. I'm going to wait until the team fighting stage, and good luck, Maniac. That's kind of what you have to do. at times, and I think that that's a perfectly fine decision. As long as Maniac's surviving and a veteran player like Maniac is doing exactly what I expect, which is taking the lumps where they come and understanding that you're not playing for this part of the game. Just wait until later and make your impact there.
We haven't gotten to see much Arthur yet, so I'm glad I've got you here with me and I can kind of pick your brain about him. He moves to the 3 stances, has the arcane, the ice stance, the fire stance.
Oh, Merlin.
What did I say?
You said Arthur. I'm sorry.
Oh, I said Arthur. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Merlin. I'm sorry, but I haven't got to see much Merlin. Exactly what I meant. And I haven't even gotten to see him in these team fights that much. Sort of when Merlin's in these fights, you know, which stances do you want to see him in,
Sure.
in certain fights, that sort of thing. Just talk to me about what you expect from Prime on this thing.
So the way I look at Merlin is it's kind of a if-then chart. If there's someone on top of me that I can't get away from, then I need to be in fire. Because the only way that I'm going to be able to get them off of me is by pure damage output. If the team fight is going a little bit slower, and I feel like I'm going to get some pretty good setup, I want Arcane stance. Because Arcane has a ton of damage output. Your Eclipse, your Arcane 1, does a ton of damage. I think people really underestimate how much damage those ticks do, and just the outright hit. And, of course, the Vortex is a very strong CC that you'll put it in. So this is where Prime just switches to Arcane right here. And this is what I'm talking about, where he knows that a fight is liable to break out from that position. So I'd rather be in the... If I can pull the Khepri away or displace him, it's going to be easier for me to fight. It's interesting to me that Prime is actually maxing the 2 on Merlin. I think that overall, the 1 is usually the better ability to max, but Prime has really been focused on farming. And in that instance, the 2 is better because he can spend a lot of time in Frost stance and just drop those blizzards on the wave consistently. I think that Blizzard is the we might be fighting soon, so I'm
like
going to look for a little
around
bit of
the
poke.
objective, yeah.
Poking is very good. It's the best farming stance because you can just drop that 2 and leave, especially if you're maxing your 2. If you're maxing your 1, Arcane can sometimes be better because the Frost 1 doesn't clear minion waves very well. But overall, I think that he's very much a feel character. Getting in rhythm with all 3 stances at the same time is pretty difficult.
Yes.
I think that when we see Merlin being played at optimal levels, we'll see very aggressive Merlins a lot of the time. Using that damage by changing stance, it provides a lot more than people really give it credit for. And I've also noticed that Prime is spending a lot of time in fire stance in the early game and really focusing on clearing waves as fast as possible, which is an interesting, risky call, but one that has worked out for him thus far. He's doing pretty well for himself in farm.
Yeah, Merlin is one I'm very excited to get a chance to see how someone of Prime's caliber is going to be piloted. And like you said, he has a lot of options to him. The flicker is one thing that I think a lot of people think it's very safe. It's like a combat blink, right? It essentially is. It's shorter though, and it has that long cooldown. But using that one correctly, I feel like is so difficult in these fights, and that's why I want to see how Prime is positioning. What abilities and what aggression is he waiting for from Simplicity before he starts to use it? How patient is he going to be with those beats? Doesn't have the CC immunity in his kit. So in terms of how he plays safely as well, I'm very interested. It's
really just faster Discordia 3. That's the way I look at it. If Discordia 3 wouldn't have saved you, then Flicker probably won't either. And that's does it bring safety to him? Absolutely, but it doesn't end up being. It's not a true combat blink. You can't get over walls. It's a short distance. It's a very long cooldown. You can play around it for sure.
Well, Gold Fury being considered now by Simplicity. They're still actually down in terms of gold, but they want to get this one started up. Frostiak goes in following half double. The Typhoon doesn't quite land, but Fear No Evil pins down Frostiak. That's a kill for Streak up on the Uller, and now half double has to fall back even in the Draconic Corruption. Simplicity can't find the Gold Fury off the back of that, and half double, if they don't find a fight here, might have wasted this ult.
Finds a stun on the Genetics, and Prime's got some pretty good follow-up. Half Devil tried to leap, but got abducted. Genetics has the ultimate for himself just in time as Death Panther keeps the chase going.
That Merlin damage was crazy. I almost didn't know what it was that was hurting Genetics so much, but he'd left that fire there for him, and it was burning through, so that's what Merlin can do for you as he goes in aggressively in the Death Panther, but Maniac's here on the backside. Earth and Fury, and the stun deletes him. Prime removed, and Simplicity now with the 5v4 can go where they like.
So I said I want to see aggressive Merlin play, and I do, maybe not in that exact instance. I mean, you saw the damage he was able to put on a Death Panther, half-healthed them in 2 or 3 seconds, but still, you didn't have the damage to follow up after that, and Maniac's rotation was right on time. A bit unlucky there for Frostiak. He tries his patented Frostiak combo where you put the Typhoon down and then you blink, pull someone into it as it's firing, but it was just out of range. Death Panther was right on the edge of the Typhoon and took absolutely no damage from it. And even though Frostiak was level 12, he hadn't back to base and gotten Purification beats yet. So I love that Gold Fury pulled by Simplicity. They hadn't punished Frostiak at all for not having Purification beats against a pretty heavy CC comp. But right before he got the chance, they were like, okay, let's pull this objective. They either have to come and fight us, and then we ult them, or we get the objective without a whole lot of contest. And Outcold to Gaming does the right thing. You'd rather lose a member than lose a Gold Fury. But still, Frostiak plays pretty aggressively without the beats.
Well, I don't want it to get too twisted. Outcold are by no means out of it. I mean, they're still slightly ahead in terms of gold, despite being down 3-0 in the kills and having lost that last fight. And their support, Half Devil, who we've been given a bit of a hard time, is significantly ahead of Genetics in terms of experience.
He's been farming very well.
Yeah, so it really, even though these last few fights haven't looked great, Outcold are by no means in trouble just yet in this game. Simplicity make the right call, pulling that Gold Fury and forcing a fight, but they still have a good bit of work to do.
And I think that Dimmy, despite not getting kills over here in the solo lane or not getting an experience lead for himself, has done a good job of at least getting consistent totems. I don't think that Maniac got a single totem of coup in 15 minutes. I think it was 8-0 before that coup fell away for the rest of the game. So that's a significant amount of gold that was provided just by Dimmy's pressure alone. That's 200 gold a player. That's quite a bit that you can get from just having pressure over there.
Add a little bit more as he grabs the tier 1 tower on the right-hand side. Maniac, despite his best efforts, can't quite keep the king at bay until the tower comes down. That should free up Dimmy, I'm expecting, to do a little bit more rotating. We saw Maniac, the first one to rotate. He came over, and he's the one that cleaned up Prime on the back end of that fight. I think it might even be a bigger swing in Outcold's favor once this Arthur starts being a part of the fray.
I agree, and I think this is the right time for Dimmy to join up because Gold Fury's still up. As you mentioned, he just got his tower. He just got a big power spike in Blackthorn Hammer.
Yeah.
And he has the blink. And you look across the board at Simplicity, they don't have any anti-heal quite yet. So you want to get in there and do as much as possible right now. And it seems like maybe we don't because then Terra starts joining, and Terra's such a good team fighter. It's really hard to win a team fight through Terra's blessing. But the thing about Terra is that she's not going to get any easier to team fight against. Sure, you'll get some more pen. Maybe you can get some anti-heal as well, but you already have it in Frostiak's Brawler's Beat Stick. I think that Outcold Gaming is much better prepped to win a fight at this point in the game than Simplicity.
Looks like they agree with you as the Gold Fury gets pulled. Streak Up and Genetics are nearby, and Half Devil jumps in right away. The slow is there from Pretty Prime as well, and Genetics isolated.
Lord.
He has the Scarab's Blessing and proc, but Frostiak brings him down even through the res, and now Simplicity must fight without their tank.
I love that Pretty Prime spending so much time in Fire Stance. It's risky, but the payoff is insane. With Spear of the Magus, that support didn't last long at all.
And they're burning the Gold Fury as well, but Fails times it perfectly. He comes in with the Fear No Evil. No one ready, and the Gold Fury gets stripped away, but now can the Monkey make it back out? He jumps away to the left, but the rest of Outcold want to keep on pushing through this narrow pathway. Maniac, the initial target, but this Terra, plenty tanky. King Arthur takes her up, and Half Devil will be waiting when she comes back down. They need the lockdown as well, and Dimmy gets a kill.
Half Devil can't find either of his stuns on a Death Panther, so the mid lane Chernobog escapes, but still, at least they get the kill onto Maniac. It looks like Fails is able to get out of there pretty easily after the fact, and now Frostiak gets full comboed. Streak Up almost had the damage, just a little bit short of finding it, while the rest of Outcold is still sieging.
Well, Fails coming on the backside again, but he does not have the ultimate this time. Remember, he used it to secure that Gold Fury, but his presence more than enough. Chernobog goes up as well. That means everyone's slowed on the side of Outcold. He lands the root, but Dimmy responds with an ultimate of his own, goes right up into the air. Look how much damage he's tanking, and he makes his way back out, but still the autos come through, and Death Panther finally punishes him. The King topples down, and Simplicity make it 1-for-1.
Man, that was such a sick Vortex by Pretty Prime with the very last bit of his mana. He ends up pulling Genetics off of Dimmy, but still not enough to save his life. Simplicity should be able to get this Pyromancer pretty easily, and that's Outcold doing a pretty poor job of zoning. You should be letting Prime and Spudio sit on that Gold Fury all by themselves. They can tank it easily at this point in the game. Frostiak should be trying to hunt down Streak Up, in my mind, but it could be Half Devil in that spot, it could be Dimmy in that spot. But someone has to put the Hunbats in combat.
Like, I mean, way that Fear No Evil should be hitting all 4 of them, right? Like,
in no way he should ever get the chance to blink.
Yeah.
That is 101 of zoning, is you keep them from blinking onto the objective, especially the highest priority. Even if Maniac gets in there and hits a 4-man Terra's Blessing on the ultimate, you've gotten Gold Fury. He's not stealing it from you quickly. Fear No Evil is the best steal opportunity, and so I think that zoning Streak up to make sure he doesn't get an easy hail of arrows off is a top priority, and stopping Blink Fear No Evil is the top priority. And I think that Outcold did a poor job of understanding exactly who they had to zone and then executing on it.
Despite that punishing last fight, Simplicity only about 700 or so gold out in front. This game's still very, very close. Have to be careful. They've committed onto him before, but he jumps back over the wall, so he is okay. But because they got the Gold Fury and they're able to come back over and get the Pyromancer, and they went 1-for-1 in kills, that fight does favor Simplicity. But still, they haven't created much distance between the two of them. You have to worry about a King Arthur and a Merlin, who are still very much relevant. Though a bit behind experience-wise, pretty much.
They are. 15. They are. And you look at what Simplicity has in terms of objective damage. The double Hunter, especially at this point, Uller is still very strong at this point in the game. He hasn't really started to taper off quite yet. And Death Panther's on the Chernobog with his new Aussie can do plenty of damage.
That's right. It gives you just about everything you could want right now playing that Hunter in the middle lane. So Death Panther happy to build into this new curve. We've seen it with the Transcendence builds often as Prime is in trouble. Fear No Evil catches him right at the tail end, and that'll spell the end. Arthur with no beads is a sitting duck. Wall lands from Maniac as well. Fails right there. Up into Draconic Corruption, but they're going to be waiting for him when he lands. The stun is perfect, and Death Panther gets another.
Dimmy in the middle of the team fight, but he gets abducted. Silence, Streak Up puts him down instantly. Frostiak did some good damage, but he goes in and gets killed himself.
What a big fight. When this Simplicity team groups up, it's too much control. It's easier said than done, but if you can control the King Arthur the way that they did, he never gets all that sustain off in the first place.
That's right.
And he really only has Glad Shield by way of physical protections. All that HP, that's going to just get shredded by these Hunters.
No time at all. Now it's to the Fire Giant. Simplicity. Their tanks are a little bit weaker, but it's only Spudio here. This should be pretty easy for them.
He doesn't even have Mounted Archery. The Abduct grabs him, and he has the ultimate there to bait out the kill from Spudio, so Genetics is still just fine. They can head right back to the Fire Giant and secure it for Simplicity. This has been a very clean game so far from them over these last 10 minutes or so.
A huge dip in experience and gold going Simplicity's way. 7,500 experience all of a sudden, and nearly 5,000 gold all go their way simply because Outcold have a rough Gold Fury fight, but then it just Pretty Prime playing a little bit too far forward. Without Purification Beads, he gets plucked right away by a good Blink Abduct by Genetics, which I think caught just about everybody by surprise. I don't think Genetics was level 12 before that Gold Fury fight. They farm up a little bit, he comes back, and I don't know if anyone checked the Relic tab before he ended up jumping all over Pretty Prime.
Does being 2 levels behind ever help your team? Yeah, I wonder if maybe there's a chance that the late second Relic coming in actually did end up hurting Outcold there. But you're right, that Blink Abduct really punished Frostiak. And that's what this composition can do. I talked all this time about how scary this Merlin and this King Arthur could potentially be, but Simplicity have controlled them so well in these team fights. They haven't given them a chance to be scary.
They really haven't. And Fails has done exactly what he's supposed to be doing on this Hunt Bats. He's been controlling the team fights, setting up for his Hunters, deal the majority of the damage for him, though I say that, he's top of the player damage charts. But Death Panther's had a really good game so far on this Chernobog. I really like the way that he's used his ultimate to reset his cooldowns the majority of the time, more so than anything else. So Simplicity's just playing very well as a unit. And Outcold have a couple good moments. I think, Prime had some good positioning early on, but then one misstep and all of a sudden he's really behind the 8-ball in experience. I'm not in love with the build from Pretty Prime either. I think it's too early for the Soul Reaver when you don't see it. I'd almost rather see a Soul Reaver on Simplicity side if they had a traditional mage, because of the Blackthorn Hammer coming from Dimmy and the Gauntlet of Thebes coming from Half Devil. That's a lot of health that you can chew through right away. Whereas on the other side, it's only Genetics that you really get a whole lot of value out of that Soul Reaver from. Maniac, of course, has Guardian's HP scaling, but no dedicated health items quite yet. And now a Shaman's Ring. I don't know that Prime's going to be able to stack this before, at this rate, the game is over.
Tier 2 tower on the left will come down. Look at this aggressive positioning from Maniac. Unfortunately, he finds nothing there. They'll settle for stripping away this red buff, and the Tier 2 tower in mid could certainly be on the menu. And I don't know if Outcold even want to come up and defend. It was a faux defense they showed on the left-hand side. They weren't really trying to stop them. We'll see if it crumbles just as easily here in mid.
Now, Demi's got a little bit more physical protection this time. He's got that steel mail, so a little bit closer, but here comes the blink from Maniac.
immediately going to drop the ultimate, and that means Spudio has to fall back, but fails yet again, catches them with the Fear No Evil. That sets up 2 early on. Frostyak gets deleted and too far forward in front of the tier 2 tower. Streak up on a killing spree, and Simplicity bringing down the house on Outcold Gaming.
The front line just got evaporated, and Dimmy has not got an ultimate off in the last 5 minutes, it feels like.
Prime's already used the beads as well, just barely makes his way back out of there. Spudio with the Mountain Archery, he does hit just about everyone, but I don't know if it's anywhere near enough damage. Simplicity can fall back, heal a little bit, and just re-siege. This Phoenix is going to fall.
Spudio now standing far forward, and he gets his beads stripped away. And Simplicity are positioning like they're going for the end?
I think they've got the right idea. Prime doesn't have beads. He can't afford to step any further forward than this. Aegis comes out from Spudio. He's back to the fountain, and the Titan's already well below half HP, and just like that, Simplicity up against Outcold, up against King Arthur and Merlin, shut it down in 25 minutes.
That was surprising and impressive from Simplicity, but again, I think that Outcold was in control for a little bit. Fails his Hun Bats was a huge difference maker in that game. Steals the Gold Fury, separates the team fights, and then in the later stages, Dimmy didn't get a chance to do anything because it was just Fear No Evil onto him consistently. Unfortunately for Outcold, it also usually caught Half Devil in the same cast.
Yeah, and I want to give as much credit to Genetics as I can, too.
Yes, he played great.
All the arguments about why Khepri's good, you saw him in that game, man. The reses were on point. The control from the Abduct was there, too. A really just great team play all around. Anything real quick specifically you want to see him do different, or?
Zone, play as a team, hit your stuff, I don't know.
Yeah, a lot
all
of stuff
above.
maybe, to try and work on. Let's get it back over to the desk, though. I'm sure they've got some ideas, too.
Well, the draft went one way, but Outcold Gaming, unable to make it heat up here in game number 1, fails, and the squad across the way bring the victory.
A lot of it came down to that one Gold Fury fight around the 17.5-minute mark. It was just unsuccessful zoning out of Outcold Gaming. They pick off Genetics, which was a great look, and fails. Blinks in, steals it with a monkey toss, and I think he even got out jumping over this wall.
Yeah, this was a really big game for him, and I talked about the lack of consistency out of both of these junglers, and I think Fails has been perhaps the bigger culprit there, but watching him on a character that he's strong and he's comfortable with, such as Hun Bats, is always a treat, and this is kind of what you can expect out of this character and this jungler combination.
And I love Death Panther playing the Chernobog, going 4-0-6 this game. The double physical hunter between himself and Streak Up. Without too much just action in the dueling, Streak Up had a relatively comfortable game, and how are you going to really lock down a Chernobog in the mid lane? He's able to dash into the wall and also have that global pressure.
4-0-6, the numbers speak for themselves. Great job there coming out from Death Panther, and Simplicity able to take this one. And we see the Merlin, we see the Arthur across the way. What was it specifically that allowed Simplicity not necessarily to win the game, but to deal with those two options?
It was their lack of peel, I think, at the end of the day. I think that Half Devil on the Fafnir was, looking for those engagements, but once either himself or Frostyak got picked, it was just all pickings at the end of the day, because once these soul laners started rotating between Maniac's Terra and also Dimmy's King Arthur, it favors the defensive Guardian as the late game progresses. So much control, so much sustain also on that ultimate, about 4,700 healing at the end of the game for Maniac.
So just kind of a starvation of King Arthur. They didn't engage. We didn't see Arthur really get any targets to really fight. And if you don't allow him to fight, well, he doesn't really know what to do with himself, and so there you go. Merlin kind of had an impact, but wasn't able to do enough in the game, I felt.
It was just because of the lack of peel at the end of the day. It was too aggressive of a draft from Outcold Gaming. They even tried to defend their Tier 2 tower at the end of that game against a Fire Giant Simplicity, and that was their downfall.